Hello, my name is Brant Hunt. My channel is Discerning What is True. I'm live today on the first day of February, that is in 2023. I'm going to be reading a book called Communitarian Manifesto by Nikki Raapana, and it's going to be the chapter 8. Nikki Raapana at one time lived in the state of Washington and lived in the city of Seattle. And mainly, this is where she learned all the communitarian perspectives on um, how they were going to begin to move and force people to do what they want them to do. That is, throw them out. She was actually thrown out of her particular apartment because the city decided to basically to condemn the building. But in reality, there really wasn't anything to condemn that building in some ways. It was, yes, it was in somewhat bad shape, but it was about other people who are willing to basically destroy that building in order to the city to benefit financially for someone else to put in some particular other buildings, you see. But anyway, I don't want to get all in that details, but Nikki Raapana put this book out. Sadly, Nikki Raapana is passed. She passed away last year. She actually moved to Alaska, trying to get away from this, I think. And then sadly, that's the city of Anchorage, Alaska, is buying into all this same bullshit with communitarianism. And so this is a deep subject, folks. There are many people involved in this. There are many what I would call carriers. These are people who actually believe in this nonsense, that they believe that is their right to take you off your property if you don't go along with their agenda. And that's going on in Europe. It's going on here in America. As far as I know, I don't know where else it's going on, but I'm sure it's in the Far East and other countries throughout the world. So let's get into the meat of the book here, okay? This is chapter 8, and the title of the chapter is known as Ecological and Historical Debts, DEBTS. And so let's go into it right now. Now, we know, according to all the experts, developed nations are unsustainable. Modern people overconsume resources. Their lifestyles degrade the environment. The only answer is to restrain all people to become communitarians by whatever means is necessary. Sustainability can only be achieved after people change to better communitarians. Well, there's a problem with this particular statement, if you look at it, and what she's sharing, is that at one time we used to have glass containers. They have gone away from that. They use plastic, so it's disposable. It benefited the petroleum industry and it benefited the chemical industry, you see. So it's actually them that created this problem. Okay. We used to take Coca-Cola bottles and take them back to the grocery stores, and the bottling company in your local town would recycle those, not recycle, but would clean those bottles and use them again. And no one thought anything about it. Okay. This was done over and over and over, folks, until they come up with the concept of selling you aluminum cans, which is actually not good to drink out of, and also plastic containers, which is not good. Again, it's like these are both chemicals, folks. The aluminum can is made of aluminum, which has to do with why people have Alzheimer's these days or dementia. There've been too much aluminum in their lives, and it affects their head, their brain, I should say. But anyway, I'm cutting off sidetrack here, but just want to educate you a little bit here. So here's a quote from Kent Portney, Portney, from Tufts University. Here's his ideas. The concept of sustainable communities is, for many cities and many respects, fundamentally communitarian in nature. Without changing the way people relate to each other and the values that underlie these interactions, pursuing sustainability would simply not be possible. What this is, as someone has said in the past, is that the green, everything's green, is actually the old red. It's a communist idea, you see. Yeah, you see what I'm saying? Red being communist, based upon the Soviet Union and communist China. The general consensus is this: under enlightened legal systems that protect individual rights have not yet adequately adopted the correct values of morality. Wrong. This is what they're trying to do. They're trying to display. They're trying to dispel, get rid of what we call law, and they did that back in the 1930s under from Franklin Roosevelt. And what happened was simply it no longer was public law; it became public policy. You see, so policy is not law, folks. Policy is what I would call bias. Okay, far more biased than law is. Law is supposed to be direct to the point. That's what our country was actually based upon. And what has happened simply is they've already gone to that particular thing. That was in the 1930s, you see. And now they're moving us to another particular era, what they call communitarianism, which is you can't offend anybody. If one person has a problem with you, then everyone else must fall in line. It's a victim reality. Okay. So we must all come to believe in a superior religious foundation for all human existence. Okay, in order to save the planet, we have to fundamentally change. We must combine atheism and fanaticism and every belief in between. There are no more divisions among men. We must become as one. And let me change the thing here real quick for you. I'm doing this for my own self. Sorry about that. Messed up here. Sorry. What is wrong with this thing here? Okay, try this. Okay. So here's a statement. Communitarianism offers one possible way of speaking about policy proposals that might sound both fresh enough to heighten listening skills when environmental laws are suggested, as well as tantalizing enough to attract new coalitions for environmental legislation. Communitarianism shared a quest for the moral, legal, and intellectual criteria that balance concerns for our common good and for autonomy. At first glance, this claims appears to be double talk. How can we pursue a goal that incorporates two values, each primo facie, the antagonist of the other? The key is balance, an extremely significant concept in a Congress that has labeled do-nothings, and gridlock, and that characterized as rife, R-I-F-E, with institutional nationalized partnerships. Perhaps such a group in a divided country has much to gain by studying those who are interested in immediately points between social forces and the individual, between community and autonomy, and between individual rights and social responsibilities. This is a communitarian green space between market and political rhetoric about environmental law that's based upon LawNet, government of Sri Lanka. Community religious law is an intricate part of the vision. In China, the Buddha teachings are being reintroduced as enlightened communitarianism of the Asian and communist variety. In Western nations, that is, biblical law is out. Islamic and Talmudic law is introduced as a more moral solution than biblical or secular state laws. Around the entire world, unenlightened local people are taught that restoring their ancient, non-existent communitarian values is the only way to prevent total destruction of the planet. Communitarianism is hailed as superior to any one religion or secular system on the planet. Faced with this monumental task, not everyone agrees is even possible. There's only one organization that has the capacity to empower this newly created subnational government to pass religious administration laws that overrule national constitutional laws. And that is the United Nations, folks, you see. And so the national congresses under public scrutiny may outright refuse to take the necessity drastic actions, but there is a way around that problem, you see. This is what she's suggesting from another quote here. Is the UN capable of empowering subnational governments to act on issues of government sustainability? Over the past 20 years in some geographies, Cities and states, as opposed to national governments, have played an increasing role in positive sustainability results. There's no better evidence of this than the patchwork of cities and state climate change laws in the United States while Congress has blocked federal action. In light of this, such actions should be empowered, further not ignored. This is Rio Plus, Can International Environment Law Evolve? By John, J-O-N-D, and David Sohn, S-O-H-N. Now is the era where a metaphysics meets the imagination in the perfect middle, and the result will be nothing short of glorious. We're about to embark on the most incredible journey mankind has ever witnessed. And this is a quote from Hegel. Listen clearly, folks, because this is actually where a lot of this stuff is coming from. It must be understood that the state is the realization of freedom. I'll say that again. It must be understood that the state is the realization of freedom, i.e., of the absolute final aim, and that is this for its own sake. It must further be understood that all the worth which the human being possesses, all spiritual reality, he possesses only through the state. Well, folks, that's a real big problem, isn't it? Hegel's ideas here, this particular statement. It must be understood that the state is the realization of freedom. So where in reality they're saying simply is that you don't get your freedom from natural law. You don't get your freedom from your creator. You get your freedom from the state, a government, which is a man-made idea, you see. So Hegel's ideas are proponents and have been pushed by these groups. It's not just him. It's the Fabians, the communists. The communists would believe this. So would the socialists. And so is the communitarians. You see. Let's continue. Humanity is transitioning into an extreme new conscious level, and the vibrations are shaking the foundations of nations. We are about to understand exactly what we are worth. The law of Mother Earth is going to set us free. So this is another statement here. And you can see the wording here. It's mystical. Here what it says. Humanity is transitioning into an entirely new conscious level. So man is moving upward. Okay. And the vibrations are shaking, another word, a new age word, vibrations are shaking the foundations of nations. We're about to understand exactly what we are worth. The law of Mother Earth is going to set us free. So a lot of that's new agey stuff there too, folks. Okay. Be aware of that. So the law of Mother Earth, now agreed by politicians, are agreed. Why did this? Wait. Why is this happening now? Okay. Why is it happening now? Why didn't we know this in 1600s? Why didn't we know this, in the age of, 300 or 400 years ago? I mean, not three at the age of 200 to 300 A.D. Why didn't we know this then? Or they borrowed concepts to bring into the mix it and create something here. Okay. Let's continue. And grassroots social groups redefine the country's rich mineral deposits as blessings and expected to lead to radical new conservation as social measures to reduce pollution and control industry. This is Bolivia's enshrined national world's rights with equal status for Mother Earth by John Vidal, V-I-D-A-L, from The Guardian of April 2011. In 2009, Bolivia rewrote their national constitution based on plurinational communitarian values. Numerous articles have appeared applauding their advanced understanding of the world vision for peace, justice, and harmony. Bolivian's President Morales formed the group pressing for full communitarian human rights for Mother Earth at the next Rio Earth Summit in 2012. When Bolivia's President Evo Morales was sworn into second term in January, he proclaimed Bolivia a plural national state that would construct communitarian socialism. This is it's right out in your face, folks. Socialism is a dangerous game to play with. This all goes back again to the Fabians. In a accompanying address, Vice President Abar Garcia Linera envisioned a socialist horizon for Bolivia, characterized by well-being, making the wealth communal, drawing on our heritage. The process will not be easy. It could take decades, even centuries, but it is clear that the social movements cannot achieve true power without implanting a socialist communitarian horizon. Communitarian Socialists in Bolivia. This is by Roger Bergbach, Burbach. All sides will be very disappointed when the communitarian synthesis becomes the only game in town, you see. Jim Petras, a Marxist scholar who has written on Latin American politics for half a century, asserts that Morales gives a high priority to orthodox capitalist growth over and above any concern with developing alternative development, pole built around peasants and landless rural workers. This, he says, has led to the increased size and scope of foreign-owned multinational corporations' extraction capital investments. And that would be, well, we won't go there. We'll go back here. Orthodox growth is part of the new state religion. Unlike unsophisticated peasants and landless workers in cities and rural areas, multinational capitalist investors share a superior globalized commitment to sustainability and communitarian values. Why would they do that, folks? Because they'll all put you in a city, you see, and you will no longer have control of being able to grow your own food, be able to do anything that you actually would be to actually keep yourself alive. You would be dependent upon them. That's what they want. Because you're no longer needed here anymore, folks. That's what this whole idea is. That's what the end game's all about, too, you see. In local versus global conflicts, global wins every time, but a few locals are enriched by the process for balance, you see. Here's another quote. Environmental governments, the institutions, organizations, and mechanicalism by which humans currently govern all biological, physical science of the planet are insufficient, poorly understand, and ultimately require more effective government systems, more control. IHDP defines environmental governance as an interrelated and increasingly integrated system of formal and informal rules-making systems, and actor networks at all levels of human society, from local to global. Yeah, that's a buzzword for them, from local to global. They are set up to steer societies towards preventing, migrating, and adapting to global and local environmental changes, and in particular, Earth systems transformation within the normal context of sustainable development. This is from the International Human Dimensions Project. Since the first edition of 2020, our God's Common Destiny was published in 2006 when we found numerous documents claiming there is a version of Catholic communitarianism. Most recently, in articles about Republican candidate Rick Santorum has been labeled as a conservative communitarianism. Remember, Newt Gingrich is the third way, and Romney is a Mormon. All choices for American presidents, that is, in 2012, would be religious communitarians, although we don't expect this to become an issue. News sources claim a communitarian essence in Lutherans, Methodists, Islamists, Judaism, pagans, Catholics, Gulam, indigenous native traditions, and Mormonism, and Baha'ism. It's now January 2012, and millions of people have already been tricked into accepting this global communitarian religion, although not all of them may fully understand that it's a religion they follow. The world is being led into a final, ultimate third way synthesis of all ideas with barely a peep out of the people you might expect to be against it. That's right, they control the right and they control the left, okay? The right wing, left wing, and then they also control the middle. Many new Americans, vocal opponents of UN Agenda 21 and ICLEI/sustainability development, endorse other communitarian programs for the common good, like character education. What is character education, folks? Is that talking about morals? Okay, anyway, community service and volunteerism, community policing, community economic development, community outreach / education, community courts, Sharia, Talmud, Gaia, law, etc. By avoiding the topic of communitarianism and the term community, it allows us to remain true to the parts of the dialectic we were assigned to defend until there is nothing left to defend. The Anti-Communitarian Manifesto poses communitarianism is the synthesis in a Hegelian dialectic formula for change. Our layman's opposition to a giant communitarian solution to all conflicts has a growing mass of evidence to suggest that the possibility that what we oppose is true. Yet scholars who profess a much deeper understanding of the Hegelian formula seem unable to make the same final connection we make. Many authors whose work we've discovered explains the use of the dialectic from a religious perspective, which validates our antithesis, but only by default. For example, Michael Hoffman, in his Judaism Discovered, a well-documented treatise against racism, presents more evidence than we have previously seen regarding the Kabbalist basis for the Hegelian dialectic. We learn more about the ancient roots for Christian Zionism from Hoffman, you see, than we have from any other source, including Shekinah, Goddess Word, and the Christian Kabbalah. But like other respected revisionist historians studying the Pharisees' tradition of Kabbalah, Talmud, law, he calls the 7 Noahic laws, the 7 billion Noahic laws, that is. Hoffman remains silent when it comes to naming communitarianism as the synthesis. This is the only time that Hoffman uses the term communitarian in his 1049 page book. Okay, so I'm not saying, this is her perspective. I think Hoffman tries to share as much as he has. He's a brilliant man. He's actually standing against almost everyone based upon what this guy's done. Okay, so I would beg with that in some ways. Well, maybe he doesn't understand that yet. He's understanding certain things how this works, but maybe he doesn't see this. But anyway, we'll continue. This is what he says here in his quote: a theoretical basis for the communism and Zionism of Moses Hess in his Hegelian concept of meditation, which itself is a scientific version of the human alchemy of medieval Luranic, Lurianic Kabbalah. The seeming opposites, the equalitarian utopia of communism and the race-based colonialism of Zionism, are mediated through Judaism, which brings to the world the recognition of Judea mankind as the communist consciousness and the Zionist judge in the world. For Hess, the Judean people were uniquely qualified for this exalted role due to their strong communitarian traditions for solidarity and their divine spirit, upon which the future Messianic communist worldly kingdom will be founded. This is in his book called Judaism Discovered. She also continues, Huffman does not include the term communitarian in his index, nor does he mention Amital as a Zion, but he does introduce the reader to Martin Luther's Protestant Reformation writings and said the most astounding thing on the very next page, a few graphs after the above quote. Eisenmenger work has been intended, I'll spell this for you, Eisen, E-I-S-E-N, Menger, M-E-N-G-E-R's work has been intended for Christians, not the atheist-oriented Hegelians whose philosophical system was a kind of perpetual motion machine that harnessed the energies of committed leftists and rightists to advance a higher unseen object. What part of the global harmonization of norms remains unseen in order to free our minds from the magical formula from enlightenment? First, we must see that there are many different versions of this whole nature worship enlightenment ideology. Some religious, ones that would seem to oppose the pagans of the new Mother Earth religion, continuality, and new layers of the evolutionary centrist Reformation. Another quote. We need to distinguish between level 1 paganism and the new level 3 paganism. Level 1 is the idea in the raw from, and it was rejected by level 2, which is the religion of the prophets. The prophets saw that level 1 paganism was all about eros, with its power and passion. There was no ethics. The prophets rejected that. They said God primarily demands his ethical behavior, and the prophets are right, but level 3 both transcends and includes level 2. We don't get rid of prophetic ethics, but we move from that place to eros. We reclaim the eros, the energy of Shenaniah, the energy of the goddess, and unites it with others. This is from Rabbi Mordecai Gafei, Gafni, a controversial charismatic rabbi with 2 best-selling books, and is also on the Israeli TV program. This was a quote also from Michael Hoffman, page 524 of his book. Many good people will assume this harmonization is a benign spiritual ideology that has little influence on the physical world, but communitarianism is based in the dialectic. Unless someone proves us wrong on this fact. So in a communitarian version of spiritual enlightenment, the physical is merged with the spiritual into one beautiful new religion that includes adopting a few codes and legal principles from every known religion, you see. That is from Moses Hess, a founder of Zionism, explains dialectic thinking in his socialism and communist perspective. And he continues on. Fourier, as Fourier, and Hegel have recognized that there exists only one human nature, just as there exists only one principle of life, and not a good or a bad one. Neither angels, devils, nor virtuous and lascivious men. Through Hegel, the German spirit reaches the realization that the freedom of the person should not be sought in uniqueness of the individual, but in what is common to all human beings. But in order to actualize this truth in life itself, those two moments, personal freedom and social equality, have to be reunited. Without absolute equality, without French communism on one side, and without absolute freedom, without German atheism on the other. Neither personal freedom nor social equality can become actual, realized truth. Okay, and that is from Mr. Hess. It is only through complete physical integration that our absolute freedom to be slaves is fulfilled. So this again. It is only through complete physical integration that our absolute freedom to be slaves is fulfilled. Once we are spiritual advanced souls, you see, we'll understand that because we are the cause of the problem, it is more socially just that we should pay the cost to fix our mistakes. Fines, taxes, and greater enforcement of the new morality are the only thing that will save Mother Earth, you see. We must all pay our dues, you see, and some of us owe more than others. The global great-great-great-great-grandchildren of immigrants owe everybody big time. The communitarians care about the earth more than we do. So we're lovingly but sternly told we must embrace our ancestry guilt. All the descendants of armies or immigrants who did not actually partake in the pollution, violence, or genocide hold the debt. Our collective guilt means we will agree that we will need to be happily pay gross retroactive fines for the ancient sins and transgressions of our ancestors against Big Mother. See this whole religion, whole apparatus here being put on people. They don't see that, you see. So they give you all this flowery language that makes you feel good, doesn't it? You know, they don't tell you how they're going to do it, neither, do they? They just give you all this little thing. It's just like who's it like, Brent? Can you tell me who it is like? Yeah, it's about propaganda. You see, it's the same old crap. You see, it just keeps coming around. People just don't see it, which is by Bernays. You see. Number one here, in order to achieve the fundamental objection of the UNFCCC, we call upon the 15 meetings of the Conference of the Parties to the UNFCCC to support a binding emissions reduction target for developed countries, Annex 1, of at least 45% below 1990 levels by 2020, at least 95% by 2050. Is that what they're talking about? I just read something here from someone just last night and actually posted it. It talks about CO2 levels. The CO2 levels are actually at the lowest they've been in a long time, folks. And if they get down to a certain part, what's going to happen is the whole planet's going to die. You see, you need carbon. You always will need carbon. You need carbon dioxide. Because carbon dioxide, what we breathe out, the Creator created this. What we breathe out is our carbon dioxide. The trees, grass, then take in that carbon dioxide, and what they do is they produce oxygen. And that's a basic concept. And almost all young people don't know that. They don't understand that. And they follow this stuff as though it's some, I'm not saying it's all young people, it's other people. But the point simply is many young people are all ready to, do this. March, let's go do it. Let's do this. In reality, it's going to be suicide. This is suicide, folks. Total suicide. That's why they got this clean energy stuff. We have solar, we got these little fans out here, these little things, wind machines, it's going to create, which in reality doesn't. When there's never been a problem with this, folks, with a carbon dioxide, the earth was able to take care of that by the creators knowing that, you see. But a basic principle is missing here. If you do not have carbon dioxide, the plants cannot produce oxygen and the planet will die. Period. It's that simple. And it gets to the level of, I think it says around 300, then it's toast for all of us. And this is what they're doing. They're also doing another thing. I got to elaborate. I got to share. They're actually making days now. They're blinding, keeping the sun out of your life. The sun also produces this too, folks. The sun is seen as an evil thing, you see. But if there's no sun, there's no light, there's no heat, and there's no energy. And this planet will also die because of this. So they're all covering their cold deals here. So you should be happy and you should be blessing the sun, because sun gives life, S-U-N, by far. So I continue here. And recognizing the root cause of climate change, participants call upon states to work towards decreasing dependency on fossil fuels. We further call for a just transition to decentralized renewable energy economic sources and systems owned and controlled by our local communities to achieve energy security and sovereignty. Mother Earth is no longer in a period of climate change, but in climate crisis. This is all this fear porn here, okay? We therefore insist on immediate end to destruction and desecration of the elements of life. This is from the indigenous people state this. The Global Summit on Climate Change in Anchorage, Alaska, 2009. They've already brainwashed them, period. In 1992, the United Nations and the European Union adopted the supremacy of communitarian law as a fundamental principle for achieving global sustainable developments. This international framework necessary to enforce the rights of Mother Earth reached everywhere. United Nations original. Who is the United Nations? Tell me, who is the United Nations? It is people who have a dogmatic belief in actually destroying the nation states. That's what it is. So the United Nations' original purpose, which may have been communitarian all along, has been altered with the infusion of communitarian rhetoric. Well-trained, highly paid Fabian agents of change has disassembled it to every corner of the planet. The world is in a crisis, and nobody cares as much about our planet than the communitarians. Americans and other developed nations must reduce our emissions to at least 45% below 1990 levels by 2020, at least 95% by 2050. According to the experts, the independent entrepreneurs' developments of the world was a dangerous and life-threatening system of over-permissiveness. Our dependency on fossil fuels and automobiles is the root cause of climate change, which gives Americans and other gas hogs a huge ecological debt that must be paid. I'm looking at here in my own area here within 4 or 5 miles, and I'm seeing developers. I'm seeing bull crap. That's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing developers mowing down trees and building housing developments out in the middle on a field. So if these developers get away with it, what's going on here? This is garbage. They're not. If this is so true, why is this happening? You see, I'm not taking sides on any of this. I'm just showing you what I see going on. I see them simply, but I also show this to other people here, the road is major near here, a state highway. It has many trucks that go on it that puts out pollution. But in reality, I see the trees right beside the road. And they're living. They're living. You see, they're living. So that's all bull crap, folks. If they were all that pollution was put out there, quote unquote, and they would be. This is so basic. You see. Then why are they still living until they mow them down? You see. A good global citizen follows scientific, spiritual experts and willingly takes on the status of inferior. Local trained leaders are chosen for their ability to follow blindly, analyze, and preach the new faith with conviction and style. Followers of the global communitarian religion mix the new science of sustainability with adequate cultural worship and throw in legitimate claims all people on the planet could make against corporations. Of course, the only claims that matter to the new priesthood would be their own. The new religion separates people and assumes some people are more deserving of survival. This explains some of the outrageous claims made by tribal members in the Copper Valley region of Alaska. We've been told AHTNA is the government now, and there now have been proposals to require all non-native hunters and fishermen to hire a local native guide who can show them how to honor Mother Earth more properly. People being used, folks. They were used also in Montana. You may not like that, but that's what they were. It was all pushed by a certain guy who owns a railroad company, Burlington Northern Santa Fe. And they gave him the money to push this whole agenda. You see, they wouldn't want to build a pipeline because that would endanger their railroad with moving the oil to the United States from Canada. It's all about money, folks. It's all about making money. It's all, you see. Through our knowledge, spirituality, sciences, practices, experiences, and relationships with our traditional lands, territories, waters, airs, forests, oceans, sea ice, that is, other natural resources and all like, indigenous people have a vital role in defending and healing Mother Earth. The future of indigenous people lies in the wisdom of our elders, the restoration of the sacred position of women, the youth of today, and the generations of tomorrow. Many of the most invasive communitarian programs were introduced across the U.S. via tribal governments, whose younger members are prime and well-trained in grant writing. Writing grants to get money from the government. Community health and domestic violence prevention are where the money is now. Access-based community development has also already been introduced through groups affiliated with the WWF. That is the Windsor Wildlife Federation. You see, the Windsor family, you see how they're saying they're, quote unquote, protecting the Amazon. You see, new federally funded and trained tribal resource enforcement agents patrol American land in shiny new trucks. Alaska natives are some of our most cherished people in the world, but their high rate of alcoholism, suicides, living on the dole, and conditions in the village stands in sharp contrast to their claim of superior connection to Mother Earth. They've been bought, folks. The land grants were bound to cause resentments. This just feeds it. In some places, it becomes a really touchy subject. Years of steady, improved relationship between the immigrants and the natives have been torn asunder by the communitarians. First, whites were taught that they are superior. Now the same people are teaching that all whites contributed to Alaska are denigrating, are actually being written out of their history. Native nationalist teaches natives only classes that the fish wheel is their ancestor tradition. Yet evidence shows it was two white men from Northern Europe who patented the Chinese invention in the United States, and it was brought to Alaska in the 1800s by Norwegians. That is via the lower 48. See, what they're doing is simply they want you to fight against each other. They just want that to happen while everything else is going on. You're fighting one another. And their agenda just keeps going on through, just keeps going. That's what they want you to do. We are deeply alarmed by the accelerating climate devastation brought about by unsustainable development. We are experiencing profound and disproportionate adverse impacts on our culture, human and environmental health, human rights, well-being, traditional livelihoods, food systems, and food sovereignty, load infrastructure, local infrastructure, economic viability, and our very survival as indigenous people. We were living on the, this is her again, Nikki. We were living on the Edgerton Road Highway in the Cooper River Valley of Alaska when the road celebrated its 100-year anniversary. Working part-time, making websites for local business, we constantly looked for opportunities to market them online. We could barely find Kenny Lake on a map, so I started writing a short history on the road, thinking there would be some kind of big celebration for it. The Fairbanks Valdez Cincinnati Military Road opened to traffic in 1910, following an ancient path. It was an incredible achievement for his time, and its roads go. He played a major role in the history of Alaska. Chinata, I guess I'm pronouncing it right, try to, Chitina, Alaska was born when the road opened all the way to Valdez and Fairbanks. By the 1930s, Chinata was the biggest town in Alaska, and many thought it would become the capital someday. Alaska highways were surveyed and built by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and I'm convinced that the natives were just as pleased with the development as the white and Asian settlers were, since the Tarawa village moved across the Copper River to be near the road. There are many scandals and events in the history of white rulers and local natives, but the Scandinavian Russian immigrants intermarried with native across Alaska. And many native people today carry Norwegian, Russian, and German names. I see evidence of much better historical relations than I have been taught. The first Alaska native to own a roadhouse was a local Tonsi, T-O-N-S-I-N-A, 18-mile Elgin in 1922. The Elgin Road connected the railroad station in Chinata to the rest of the territory. Natives and immigrants have been basically peaceful, sharing the Edgerton Highway for over 100 years, to the point where now everyone pretty much relates on some level. There should have been a community-wide celebration of the successful merger of this culture, some kind of party, or at least an acknowledgement of the locals who built the road through the wilderness. Major Elton, the head engineer, went on to become Governor General of the Panama Canal Zone during World War II. He built that road too. In my teens, I was on a girls' drill team and marched in a lot of parades for town celebrations. Centennials are a big deal in America, but there was nothing, not even one statutory sign to tell the tourists about it. I wrote the Army, but I never heard back from them. It just was another thing in the long list of communitarian things that nobody else besides me cares about. Sometimes I just miss the country of my childhood more than I should. From top-notch scientists in the global think tanks to indigenous gatherings of esteemed tribal elders, all proposed transitions rely on United Nations rights documents. Even the Alaska Independence Party relies on the UN. Spiritual leaders from every corner work alongside political and military leaders to anoint the new census. How is it possible that a word such as communitarian, a word most people have never heard of 20 years ago, has overnight become a founding principle for every spiritual political belief on this planet? Their propaganda is working really well, folks. It really works. Here's a quote. Communitarian socialists, that is socialism, we have always governed ourselves in our communities. This is why we maintain our customs, perform our own music, speak our own Aramaic language, in spite of 500 years' effort to erase these things, our music, our language, and our culture in a state of clandestinity. We have upheld our values, economic forms, our own type of communitarian organization, which are all being reappraised now. This is why we are incorporated into socialism, something that has resisted for 500 years, the communitarian element. We want to build our own socialism. This is David, and I don't know how to pronounce it, so I'm going to speak it. Choquehuanca. I'm just Choquehuanca, quoted in Communitarian Socialism in Bolivia. This is Roger Burback on Open Democracy 2010. That's a book, apparently. So again, this is a great, this is what they do. They put this out there. This is Edward Bernays' perfect stuff. They just keep pumping it out. And people start saying these words. They just build it. They just drop the other words and they start saying, oh, we'd like to have a communitarian village here, whatever you want to call it. It's a form of propaganda. You see, this is not what she says. This is what I'm sharing because of what I've read in Edward Bernays' books. So let's continue on. Not only is the movement for a sustainable planet a complete restructuring of local bureaucrats to adopt UN regional subnational governments, the all-encompassing global law religiously lies is being introduced by new religious leaders from every spiritual path. Pachamama, the law which is part of the complete restructuring of the Bolivian legal system following a change in the constitution in 2009, has been heavily influenced by a resurgence of indigenous Andean spiritual worldview, which places the environment and the earth deity known as Pachamama at the center of all life. Humans are considered equal to all other entities. This is Bolivia's enshrines national world rights with equal status for Mother Earth by John Vidal, Vidal, Guardian UK in 2011. This is not a joke. No matter how silly or irrelevant it sounds, the new religion is a revival of an ancient philosophy that most modern natives have never heard of before. I had to practice learning to pronounce it. I think it's catchy, you see. It's the indigenous philosophy called the Pachamama. It is a living being. Nordica and I used to attend a lot of prayer circles in Fairbanks with Alaska natives honoring the Lakota rituals. So we not unfamiliar with the beauty of the American Indian traditions. It was a very special thing. I did with my friend Maynard, a ceremonial pipe carrier from Shema. I love people from all over the world, and I've never cared what anyone else thinks of the assortment of colorful people who've always been welcome in our home. Not only do we love having guests, we love ethnic food, and we love being invited to traditional suppers, parties, and ceremonies. When I was in college back east, it was an honor to be invited to sit down in a real Sabbath ceremony with my friend Diana and her interesting parents who sang to each other. I went to every free Puerto Rican party on campus, not only because they had the best music, but the best music with the beans and rice. I visited by Mormon boys and Seventh-day Adventists bearing muffins, and I talked to Jehovah's Witnesses, often to the dismay of my housemates. I listened to anyone. Our oldest friends, my favorite Irish American family, you know who you are, have mixed race children we love as much as your own. Our own mixed heritage is not as pronounced as some, but there's a definite Asian slant to our eyes. Nordica was raised to be proud of her American, Dutch, French, English, Cherokee, Indian, Prussian, Norwegian, and possibly Mongolian heritage. But this book is about the law, not about me or how much I love my friend, that is, Valentine's Filipino cooking, or her mother, I should say. This law is destroying the things I love most about our big melting pot. We don't need any phony reasons to raise one group above another. I have a genuine the feeling of the natives who are writing this crap. They're being duped by the planners just like everybody else is. You see, she sees it, what's going on, you see. The draft of the new law states she is sacred, fertile, and the source of life that feeds and cares for all living beings in her womb. She is in permanent balance, harmony, and communication with this cosmos. She is comprised of all ecosystems and living beings and their self-organization. The only reason this has to be included in the update to 2020 is that religion is not just religion, it's religious law, partially based on an indigenous philosophy that claims a sacred status for Big Mother. It's almost hilarious to me, that is, when I named the planners Big Mother back in 2000, I had no idea how fitting it would become in 2012, because not only is communitarianism now based on some ancient South American deity, this most miraculous ideology has been embraced by natives all over South America, not coincidentally, where the Catholic socialist workers have been actively preparing them for the census ever since Vatican II. A published paper by the Jesuit confirmed our antithesis almost verbatim. They know the plan too. We get to them in a minute. The point I have to make here is this new communitarian religious revival is sweeping across South America and apparently changing their constitutions, you see. To communitarian is the new fad. Ecuador, also has powerful indigenous groups, has changed its constitution to give nature the right to exist, persist, maintain, and regenerate its vital cycles, structures, functions, and its process in evolution. However, the abstract rights have not led to new laws that stop oil companies from destroying some of the most biological rich areas of the Amazon. Ethizania's theory of communitarianism is the heart of the United Nations Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People. The theory of modern communitarianism, introduced into Western upper academia in the 1980s by Emilio Edzani, evolved within 30 days into 500-year-old native elements. There's some serious conjuring going on here. Feel the power of it? Here's where communitarianism proves itself to be downright miraculous. It's sure got all the makers of a big one, because it's not only raising a Mother Earth goddess in the mountains and valleys of South America, it's part of a rising religious movement all over the world, folks. Every now and then, one of the churches lets their readers in on the bigger plan. Sometimes they drop hints about where it is all originating, too. Here's a quote. So might there be a correlation with communitarian philosophy in the Gulen, G-U-L-E-N, perspective? A reading of the responsive communitarian platform reveals the communitarian movement's most salient concerns: the recipients of social life, renewed moral values, the importance of historical context, strong participation democracy, a vibrant family structure, schools and education, government involvement guided by degree of necessity, responsibilities of citizenship, protection of human rights, social justice, public safety, and public health, and internationalizing the primacy of human community. It's a sensible outline of focus areas for community-minded attention that could indeed mesh well with the aims of the Gulen movement, G-U-L-E-N movement. A communitarian imperative from, I'm going to spell this again, is F-E-T-H-U-L-L-A-H, Gulen, G-U-L-E-N, model of modern Turkey. Other religious movements like the Baha'is have no trouble explaining the connection between religion and the New World citizenship requirements under Sustainable Development Plans. Members of this religion have a Sunday of the Earth in Kenneth Lake, Alaska, a few miles where I live, from where we live, I should say. The owners of the School of the Earth are active community league leaders. They affiliate organizations, Follow Earth Stewards, and Eco-Tourism Guides, including Wrangell Institute for Science and Environmental. Receives huge portions of community development block grants from their pet ego projects by diverting state funds intended to help the whole community. They always do this, folks. They divide you, they do this, and you can't seem to see it because you don't want to see it. Continue. In 2009, I invested in the community league when some neighbor who had become good friends asked me to get involved, but I could only stomach one meeting, the one where they included that has introduced a need for 7 new standing committees. Kenneth Lake had a population of only 410 people, but the 23 million acre area has lots of attention from major players and facilitators, and big UN NGOs like Eco Trust from Oregon sponsors booths at the local fair. The closer you live in the proposed wilderness corridors, the more top-level change agents you have per capita in your little town. The WIS, again, the Wrangler Institute for Science and Environmental symbol is an owl that looks suspiciously familiar. And their motto was, enlightened citizens make wise decisions. WISE modified their website after I sent my research on the grant distribution out of their list. They indirectly responded to me by writing 2 columns against me in the Copper River Record. Editor Mary Oddden, O-D-D-E-N, seen with indignation, defending the business that profit from the volunteer community spirited agenda with lofty talk and downgrading me without ever using my name or citing what I actually wrote. This Copper River, this is interesting what she's talking about. This is the Copper River area. And this Copper River area is also where at one time, trying to think of the families, can't think of them right now, but anyway, it's one of the, it was a railroad that was built to the copper mines. And the railroad no longer exists, but it was built in the 1930s. It was a huge copper find. I want to say it's owned by the Oppenheimers, but I don't think it's correct. It's another foreigner. It's a massive work what they did just to build this thing, the railroad, to basically to a seaport area in order to be able to offload the copper. And it actually hired many people to do that also. And I'll have to share that with you. But the Copper River, they had to cross, they had to get a bridge built personally, a huge bridge, had to come in what I call, somehow they brought it down the river and they were able to put it up. I don't know how they did it. It's a massive, as far as I know, it was on a boat, ship. All this took time, such and such. But anyway, I'm getting off the tangent here. So anyway, she's, the obviousness of it makes us bust out laughing, especially when she wrote with a sneer, community, 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 and claimed they would say, what is going on here is people are brainwashed. They're completely brainwashed. And they're following an ideal that they have not even done the research themselves in who this group is. This whole idea, communitarianism. They just buy the idea. They don't actually test and see if there's an issue here. Hey, this doesn't sort of jive with me here, And claim they would say it as much as they like. Ever since Auden wrote that, we've noticed how often the word community appears 3 times in paragraphs about the plan. Weirdly similar to the movie Hot Fuzz. The Baha'i International Community Office of the Environmental launched an initiative aimed at promoting a new sense of responsibility towards the environment by people across the planet. You see what's going on here, folks? They are actually using this propaganda to bring these religious groups that have been always separate to now begin to work in the coincidence to dealing with what you call communitarianism. This initiative began as a concept paper entitled World Citizenship, a Global Ethic for Sustainable Development. The paper stressed the need for promote global ethic in order to make sustainable development as aspiration and commitment in people's daily lives. It was presented at the first session of the UN Commission on Sustainable Development in June of 1993. My, oh my, 7 plus 23 is 30 years ago. It has since formed the basis of a worldwide campaign carried out in collaboration with a number of Baha'i international community at 175 national affiliates and many of the individuals and local communities that comprise them. The Earth Summit process and the spirit released by the parallel NGO, Orman, in Rio de Janeiro, heightened awareness among the world's 5 million Baha'is and stimulated many to launch efforts to implement aspects of Agenda 21 in their individual and community lives. But implementing Agenda 21, Sustainable Development and World Citizenship by Lawrence Arturo, Arturo. Here's a spiritual group I don't know anything about yet. This is a lady, I'm not a lady, I should say. This is a person that says, CHIAR, Chirero Lubric, LUBRICH, the spirituality expressed by Chirero Lubric soon became defined as collective, or better still, a communitarian spirituality always in view. One thing I've learned is that the most education scholars come from the religious schools, and the Jesuits are some of the smartest academias in the game. I haven't studied their history, and I don't plan to either. These tales have been well covered by others such more interesting the aspect than I am. I read enough of E. Michael Jones' Culture Wars to see firsthand the level of scholarship in the Catholic community worldwide. It is unbelievable how much I've learned from them. Many readers will not need to learn about the Catholic Church from an ignorant former Protestant like myself, but I include this for my fellow countrymen who may not be aware of the certain facts. The Catholic Church underwent a massive transformation in 1960 after the Big Vatican Council, that is the last Pope, John Paul II, and now Benedict, predict that communitarianism is a solution to a lack of spirituality in modern man. So they got it wrong. That's what they're saying. Continue. According to Pope John Paul II, it's what was lacking in Marxism. Catholic priests call it the final balance between capitalism and communism. This is our exact thesis too. Pope John Paul II was very close to Mikhail Gorbachev when the wall came down, and it appears from my point of view that they worked out some of the kinks and the new religions together. Communitarianism is not new to the Vatican, though. It was mentioned in an old Vatican publication we cited in Manifesto. So some members of the church have been aware of the term communitarianism long before Eszania borrowed it or from them. So that's not his term. This is coming from somewhere else. I don't know enough about it to say much more, and it isn't really necessary to further the main point that Catholics use the term communitarian as much as the pagans and the Islamic do. Yet E. Michael Jones has never had anything about communitarianism in his 4 years I've been following his excellent culture war articles. Jones is no fan of the new pope, or so maybe sometimes he delved into what Benedict meant when he said this. The Holy Father in Rome, profession of faith, is an act both personal and communitarianism. That's from Pope Benedict, Vatican Radio. I don't know if you people even realize this, but I think still they do. The Catholic Church, which is Vatican Radio, still broadcasts on shortwave radio. Tells you that their signals are not sent here, but actually sent into South America, big time. I know that quotes alone wouldn't mean much in relation to the focus of this book, which is by the forced collective side of communitarian thinking. But with taking in combination and other aspects of Catholic teachings, we begin to see a closer similarity to what Esselstyn is vision for the world, and it is through the Catholics and the Mormons that we learn what communitarian conservatives believe in. The US-UK Prime Minister, that is David Cameron, is defined in the British press as a follower of Philip Blond. Much has been written lately in the English press about communitarians, and many British scholars, or subjects I should say, identify Cameron's communitarians as the same thing Tony Blair and Bill Clinton pushed back in the 90s. Tony Blair recently converted to Catholicism, and I imagine he feels very much at home with the modernized Catholic values. Catholic distribution and Catholic social teaching, blonde red Toryism, and is sometimes called as a communitarian, traditional, and compassionate conservatism that is as suspicious of unchecked economic markers as it is of overextension national governments. This, you see what this is, a kinder, gentler type of thing that come across. That's my part. Presented as constant with traditional Catholic distribution and Catholic social teaching, Blond's theory begins with corporate undertaking of the political order and places special emphasis on the importance of societarian communities as critical and inherited aspects of such an order. Governmentality such subsidies parts are empowered, thereby neither relying as much on market mechanism or the state leadership for policy making and administration. This is from Larry Wilmore, WILLMORE.net/blog dash, sorry, I said slash, I meant to say 2011/10/01. So it was an article done in the month of October 1st, 2011. But I also know many Catholics who are not at all comfortable with the new values. A list of contentions that exist over the old versus the new mass. And we know that dispensation raised children who are, along with other reasons, refusing to raise their own children in a church organized under a 410C3 organization. By now, you know that the Third Way and communitarians are the same thing. Newt Gingrich pushed this deal, folks. Talked about it. A Republican, that is. A new system was identified as mainstream press numerous times as the ultimate third way. The ultimate third way, ultimate goal was to build a network of subsidiary communities outside of normal branches of government, all following the same rules, regulations, standards, and norms. You see, the third way is what Republican potential Newt Gingrich endorses. The oldest communitarian church in modern history was established by George Barmby, spelled B-A-R-M-B-Y, in England, as early founders of communism who started a communitarian church in 1848. Guess what? It is the exact date, again, of the collapse or the hopes that the communists were trying to overthrow the European governments, and it failed. Interesting that happened that same year, isn't it? The oldest reference we found in ancient history of communitarianism, Ra, defined the rabbinical law enforcing during the Hebrew captivity in Babylon. In the U.S., the only church we found who called themselves communitarians is the former Communitarian Church of Vermont, now called Cherry Hill Seminary. Vermont state record shows official recognition of it. I wrote about them at my blog a couple years ago when I found it, and they responded very unhappily to my association with them with something bad. They assured me all their witchcraft and ritual was white magic. While I have no way of knowing if that is true or not, I believe they believe it is. The more I understood Kabbalah, the easiest is for me to grasp their perceived difference between white and black magic, something I've never read much about it until lately. I hope to research this area much more in depth. Many people don't trust magic. I'm one of them who also thinks it has no place in our political system. But I don't want to pass judgment on people who think they're using it for the good. Perhaps white witches are more like Christians than they realize. The role spirituality plays in the emerging eco-religion is not spiritual at all, though. Many people don't trust demonology either. I find it all very creepy. When I consider the open Luciferian symbolism and everything the media puts out these days and how little attention the Christian churches are paying to it, it's a sign to me, how can any church fail to ask what's the ultimate goal in all the new faith-based grant money they get? And this was back, you got to understand this, is the faith-based grant money was offered back in 2002. I think it was 2002, 3. That's when George W. began to incorporate the churches. See, they were supposedly separated, but they're not, because they were 501c3, they were 501c organizations. But when they got all this grant money, they just basically hopped in bed with the government. They were already in government, I guess I should say, in the bed with them. But this was even more closer. It came as a big surprise to me that followers of the light barrier believer, that is, Lucifer, to be a victim of bad press. Enlightenment carries many meanings to many different people, but it seems to be the very close associated with the idea of secret knowledge passed down from God to special chosen humans like Moses and Noah, or some other rabbi or high priest who never told us common people what God really said. There are two versions of God law. Followers get their edited Moron, M-O-R-O-N version from unenlightened souls. I really never understood that. A lot of legitimate and respected religious scholars use numerology and all kinds of metaphysical tricks to decipher what the Bible really means. Exegesis includes all kinds of methods. It just gets better. Protestant idealism in the United States now promotes communitarians as a model of education. The big global paradigm shift is to communitarians no matter where we look. So here's a quote. Communitarian model. The communitarian model of education promotes the twin idea of character development and spiritual learning, particularly in the promotion of community service, which advances the objective of preparing students to become compassionate, contributing citizens of a global society. This is from Communitarian Paradigm by for Christian Education by Margaret McCombs, M-C-C-O-M-B-S, a dissertation for Greenleaf University, July 4th, 2007. Some Protestant religious leaders are going so far as to call it Communitarian Root Soul. It's a series of letters to a newspaper in Ohio titled Communitarian Soul Shooting Hoops on a Saturday Afternoon by Eric McLeod, a United Methodist ministry in Bowling Green, Ohio. The Saudi Arabia government just financed a world religious government body whose new home will be in Vienna. There are other Muslims' connections to the theory of communitarianism as well. I won't add all that now, but I can assure you the world communitarianism is showing up in more and more published papers in every religion. We had the below quote of the ACL website 6 years ago. Here we go with a quote here. But we are already making the second step, another continental conference in June to decide for a communitarian law that settles and sanctions phenomena like racism, Islamophobia, and anti-Semitism. Franco Frattini, F-R-A-T-T-I-N-I, Vice President of the EU Commission, announces a summit in Vienna with all religions, Muslim leaders, together with the imams against terror by Gabriel Khan, in February 25th, 2006. So this is, everybody's jumping on this bandwagon, you see. Okay? This is this feel-good condition, you see. This makes me feel good. I'm doing good, such and such. See. I not only have reference to communitarianism being the foundation for the Mormon Church, many other religions. Universalist Unitarians push Agenda 21 plans to revise local land use codes in Anchorage. So the Unitarians are also involved here. See, someone at the top has decided that they're going to teach this stuff, and they're pushing it. And it's nice stuff. It makes you feel good. We're all going to be good neighbors here. We're going to be good. And it's just a plan to destroy what we once had, which was actually far more than what we have today. And where their phrase in Anchorage 2020 about balancing individual growth originated, it's impossible now for us to keep up with all the places the words and the theories are appearing. There's so many new believers and new adherents. We are fairly convinced there is not a religion on earth that hasn't been drafted into Big Mother Earth's armies of compassion. We are being told by see, this is the one world system, folks. That's my contention. We are being told by graduates of specialized colleges that a mass extinction event is unfolding right now, like the Christians who believe we are witnessing the signs predicted in the book of Revelations. Jews who await their Messiah and the prophecies from Greater Jerusalem. The Muslims who pray for the return of Muhammad, and the Luciferians preparing humanity for their morning star to return. The worship of Gaia calls this a catastrophic end of our age. So we're going to say this right here. She talks here about ecozodia, a noun, as in ecozodia era. The term refers to emerging era when humans live in a mutually enhanced relationship with a larger community of life systems. Ecozodia era could also be considered as the ecological age, coined by Thomas Berry, B-E-R-R-Y. The concept behind this is that we are at the termination phase of the Synthezodia era, as the mass extinction event currently unfolding is the prime indicator of the end of our age. Berry says that we have a choice at the evolutionary crossroads to continue blindly down the path to extinction or to reinvent what it means to be human in the greater context of this planetary community. The next pre-planned stage of human social evolution is called the ecozodia era. Some say we have already entered it. The Gaia community colleges teach a new religion to unenlightened blasphemers like us. It's a community of life systems. Rio Plus 20 is the 20-year anniversary of United Nations Agenda 21, adopted in 1992. In addition to defining the new green economy and addressing the climate change crisis, other potential global crises have been added to the UN global agenda. Now the UN has more moral imperatives in international crisis management. Our caring mother has a mother of war room prepared to cope with all familiar and unfamiliar threats. It's another quote. Resilience provides Rio 2012 with a direct route to tackling issues that have powerful developments, environmentally and political resonance. At international levels, that is. A resonance agenda involves upgrading international crisis and management capacity to respond to food, energy, and environmental shocks, complementing the G20 role as a war room in economic crisis, undertaking institutional stress testing to look at how international and regional institutions will cope with unfamiliar threats such as a change in precipitation patterns, competition for water, receding coastlines, and so on, and rebuilding the humanitarian assistance system so that the world has sufficient capacity to cope with multi-disasters. In 2002, the Earth Charter was officially endorsed by the Association of U.S. Mayors. Somehow, the full impact of this endorsement was never issued in local American political parties, and it won't be until the people make it one. The environmental 10 commandments is a key piece of the religious aspect, and it was the foundation of re-education of us to think like communitarians. Every public school child in the U.S. celebrates Earth Day, now called Mother Earth Day. We are following the Earth's religion without all of us realizing that what it is. We also don't all really get the big part about community development, you see, a term of major importance of communitarians, a term that gets buried in favor of the more recognized sustainable development. Once we see the importance of the word community and know the basic background for the new theosophical, we can begin to question how the word is used in their documents. Let me show you what I mean by this. Whereas the Earth Charter sets forth an integrated approach to community development which addresses the respect and care for the community of life, ecological integrity, social and economic justice, and democracy, nonviolence, and peace. What is a community of life? Is there a good definition of that? It's a nice fuzzy word. That's my point. What do these obscure Earth Charters terms mean to the authors of this document? You see, they can mean anything, folks. You can make this is such a broad word. What can they possibly mean in different local settings they are introduced into? Well, according to the people who can't define it, but still base entire life-changing, and some would say life-threatening programs on it, it's whatever makes the participant feel more comfortable. The Earth Charter Workshop Toolkit suggestion, that is, organizers of workshops are encouraged to look into definitions / meanings of the terms above and come up with an explanation they feel comfortable with. That's what they're saying here. Whatever you think it means. Wow. Isn't that heavy, man? This tool applies to other UN terms as well. Agents for change prefer to use what they call working definitions as opposed to fixed term defined by accessible law dictionaries. Countless corporations and city governments have adopted green economic initiatives and declared their commitment to sustainability. But there's still not a clear, agreed upon definition for these terms. Like all other communitarian law, it will continue, excuse me, it will continually evolve. For the purpose of Green Economy Initiative, UNEP has developed a working definition of green economy as one that results in improved human well-being and social equity while significantly reducing environmental risk and ecology scarcity. In its simple expression, a green economy can be thought of as one which is low carbon, shared with you what's about, folks, resource efficiency, and social inclusive. Practically speaking, a green economy is one where growth in income and employment is driven by public and private investments. That's the public-private partnership, and reduce carbon emissions and pollution, enhance energy and resource efficiency, and prevent the loss of biodiversity and ecosystem services. These investments need to be catalyzed and supported by target public expenditures, public reform, and regulation changes. This development path should maintain, enhance, where necessity rebuilt national capital as a critical economic asset and source of public benefits, especially for poor people whose livelihoods and security depend strongly on nature. The UNEP, the Green Economy Initiative, is one of the 9 UN-wide Joint Crisis Initiative, JCI, launched by the UN System Chief Executive Board in early 2009. In this context, the initiative includes a wide range of research activities and capacity building events from more than 20 UN agencies, including the Bretton Woods institutions, as well as the Issue Management Group, IMG, or on Green Economy, launched in Washington, D.C. in March of 2010. Some of us may still want to know the real terms used to define our new laws. We may consider it important to know what community of life means in the Earth Charter. We might look further when the answers are not forthcoming. Sometimes the answer is just a click away. The first reference that pops up in an online search to find it is the Wilderness Act of 1964. The Wilderness Act is well known for a succinct and poetic definition of wilderness. A wilderness in contrast with those areas where man and his own work dominate the landscape. It is hereby recognized as an area where the earth and community of life are untrampled by men, where man himself is a visitor who does not remain. That's from wikipedia.com on the Wilderness Act. So those who, this area, man will no longer be allowed to be in there, which is a part of Agenda 21, very much so. The communitarians say this many different ways and in many different places, but it all boils down to the same belief systems that man reigns and reign is through. It's the community of life. According to the Wilderness Act, man is just a visitor who will not be allowed to remain. Human activity in the community of life is tightly regulated by communitarian experts. Wilderness corridors are started, scenic byways, urban blight, peak oil, climate change, water security, food security, poverty, injustice, inequality, protective habitats, wetlands, and wildland areas acts are all based in the same communitarian ideology. The global community is leading us all to our common destiny. Our social evolutionary path leads to worshiping the new Earth Mother religion above all other religions on Earth. This reinvented communitarian nation of Bolivia proposed full UN human rights be granted to Mother Earth. This will be presented to the members nations of Rio Plus 20. Preparations for Rio 20 are underway in every nation that signed this agreement. So yes, 2020, the world as we know it, will be completely changed, but not in any other ways the doomsayers prophets would have us believe. This transformation in communitarian sustainability will make us all happier. There are actually laws being proposed that require people to smile in Vancouver, BC, and Seattle, Washington. You will appear happy with this or else. The importance of next Agenda 21 conference is emphasized by local governments and generates a lot of excitement in certain city circles, while most citizens remain blissfully unaware of the growing power of international New Age law. Twitter feeds keep students and organizations updated on all the entertainment ceremonies and prompt meetings up to RIP Rio Plus 20. Listen for calls to serve the community. They're on the radio, TV, and internet continually. Go to community meetings and see if you can shut out bragging from the converts who never shut up about all the volunteering they do. The new religion replaces humility with super egos. You Mother Earth Agers are trained to give us a litany of every community service they're ever performed. They're all practically saints, you see. Okay? We just have to know how many of these givers were on the government side, that is, aka taxpayers' payroll, when they did all the charitable volunteering. Paid volunteers and sustainable nonprofits are simply more enlightened financially, too. It's all about the money. Okay, that deals with chapter 8, and we'll deal with chapter 9. I'm going to take a break. That will be her title. That chapter is going to be conclusion for 2012. So appreciate you being here. It's been a long talk, but I feel it's worth it. This needs to be shared with other people, folks, because it's critical for you to understand what's going on. And this was a long chapter by Nikki Raapana, and I appreciate you being here. And if you have any questions, I will try to answer them. Again, thank you for being here. You have a great day. Take care.